Chapter 12. Surprise. We like to think the world is predictable, that if we study the past hard enough, we'll understand what's coming. But history, as Morgan Housel reminds us, is more about surprises than patterns. Imagine hanging a sign on your wall that reads, "Things that have never happened before happen all the time." That's what Stanford professor Scott Sagan once said about the economy and investing, and it couldn't be more accurate. Because when it comes to money, history isn't a roadmap, it's a collection of shockwaves. We often treat history as if it's science, something with neat formulas and predictable results. But investing isn't physics, it's not even biology. It's a chaotic dance of billions of decisions made by people with limited information, emotions, biases, and shifting incentives. That makes investing less of a hard science and more of a messy, uncertain story about how people behave. Here's the irony. We know history is full of surprises, wars, crashes, booms, pandemics, and yet we constantly try to predict the future by staring into the rearview mirror. We act like economists are prophets and investors are historians. But what really drives the needle are the outliers, the tail events that no one saw coming. Housel points out that in the entire 20th century, just a tiny handful of people, 7 to be exact, may have influenced the direction of the world more than any others. Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Edison, Gates, Princip, and Martin Luther King. Think about that. Out of billions of people, a mere 0.000000004% of the population fundamentally shaped our world. It's not just people, events matter too. The Great Depression, World War II, the invention of vaccines, the fall of the Soviet Union, September 11th. These were not just chapters in history books. They were tremors that triggered waves of consequence, financial, social, political, that reshaped entire generations. But here's what's easy to miss. Most of these were nearly impossible to predict. Nobody was charting out September 11th a year before it happened. No one saw the exact day the dot-com bubble would burst. And almost no one predicted that a handful of college students in dorm rooms would one day build trillion-dollar tech companies. That's what makes these moments so powerful and so hard to prepare for. And that's where we get to the big idea. The future doesn't always look like the past, and surprises are the rule, not the exception. You might be tempted to say, well, we'll just avoid surprises by learning from history. But even that's a trap, because history doesn't repeat, it evolves. Think of it like this. If you look too far back in time, your takeaways become less specific and more general. Yes, people tend to act irrationally under pressure. Yes, greed and fear drive markets. But trying to base tomorrow's investment strategy on what worked in 1929, that's like preparing for a thunderstorm with a sandbag. Even the most legendary investment advice from Benjamin Graham, author of The Intelligent Investor, hasn't aged untouched. Graham's own advice was constantly revised across decades. He discarded his old formulas and embraced new ones, because the world around him kept changing. The economy changed. Markets changed. Technology reshaped how capital flowed and how businesses grew. Still, many investors cling to the past like it's gospel. They run forecasts using models built on data from a time when the economy looked entirely different. But, as Housel puts it, this isn't a failure of analysis. It's a failure of imagination. And imagination, it turns out, is one of the most undervalued financial skills. You need imagination to admit that tomorrow might not look anything like today. You need it to prepare for things that have never happened before and to stay calm when they do. The real danger isn't in being wrong. It's in being unprepared for what being wrong might mean. So, how should we think about the future? Housel's advice: be humble. Don't expect history to give you answers. Use it to give you perspective. Understand broad behaviours like how people react under pressure, how incentives shift behaviour, and how greed or fear can dominate logic. But don't rely on history to tell you where the next crisis or windfall will come from. It won't. Key takeaway: the biggest risks and rewards in finance often come from events no one saw coming. That's why flexibility, humility, and imagination are more valuable than precision. The best plan isn't the one that perfectly mirrors the past. It's the one that's ready for whatever surprise comes next. This audio is created and narrated by Quick Chapped.